Chapter 2461. Diana asked anxiously, "Honey, do you think Daisy will like these gifts or not? What if she doesn't like them? I feel like something is missing. Should we go buy more?" Rick massaged his temples and shook his head helplessly. His wife had never been so thoughtful when preparing his birthday present. Soon, a maid called her from downstairs. "Ma'am, Master Nalace is back." Diana left her husband at the side and ran downstairs. When she saw Daisy and Nalace, she went up to them with a smile on her face. Ignoring Nalace, she rushed right up to Daisy and hugged her. "Daisy, you've finally come to visit me. Do you know how much I've missed you?" Daisy had already experienced Diana's enthusiasm. Putting on a smile, she said, "Me too, Mom." Diana was stunned. She looked at Daisy with disbelief and asked, "What did you just call me?" "Mom, you don't like it." Daisy thought Diana did not like her calling her that. But other people said they should call their husband's mother this way after getting married. No. I like it very much. I'm so happy." Diana was filled with so much joy that she did not know what she was talking about anymore. She grabbed her hand and said, "You can call me whatever you like, sweetheart." Seeing how happy his mother was, Nalace placed his hand on his nose and said, "Mom, just stop for a while." Diana glared at him and said, "Shut up. You shouldn't interrupt when two women are talking. It's rude." Nalace glanced at his father, who was standing upstairs as if he was asking him to say something. However, Rick just shrugged and mouthed at him, "There's nothing I can do either." Daisy suddenly remembered something and grabbed the gift from Nalace's hand. "Mom, this is for you. It's a skincare product from a famous brand." Jana took over the gift and was touched beyond words. "That's so sweet of you, thank you. Oh yeah, I've prepared some gifts for you too. Come, let's go upstairs. I'll show you." Diana brought Daisy upstairs and pushed the door open. Daisy was stunned. The room was filled with all sorts of presents to the brim, from luxury bags, shoes, and dolls to cosmetics and skincare products. All of them were in mint box condition, and there were so many of them that Daisy did not know where she should put her feet. "Mom, all of these are gifts I prepared for you. If you don't like them, I can go buy some more." "It's okay," Daisy hastily chimed in and cut her short. She was worried that Diana would really go buy some more presents for her, and she said, "I like them very much." "Thank you, Mom." Diana asked again, "You really like them?" Daisy nodded without any hesitation. Diana clapped her hands and chuckled, "That's great. Oh yeah, I've also prepared a very nice room for you too." Daisy suddenly had a bad feeling about it. When Diana brought Daisy to the room she had prepared, Daisy was stunned once again. While looking at the lavishly decorated room, the corner of her lips twitched. The decoration of this room did not match the rest of the decoration in the house, and honestly, it looked a bit corny. However, Diana did not think that way. She was very proud of her feat and said, "This is the wedding room I specially prepared for you guys. It's romantic, isn't it?" Daisy smiled dryly and said, "Thank you so much, Mom. It must have taken you a lot of time." Diana grabbed her arm and replied, "Not at all, sweetheart. I'm very happy that I could do something for you too." Nalace appeared behind them, and he was shocked when he saw what his mother had done to his room. He placed his hands on his temples and said, "Mom, Dad is looking for you. What's his problem? Can't he let me stay a little while with Daisy?" Mumbled Diana. She grabbed Daisy's hand and asked, "What would you like to eat tonight, sweetheart? I'll go prepare it for you." Chapter 2462. Daisy smiled. "It's okay. I can eat anything. Alright, I'll go downstairs first." Before Diana went away, she looked at Nalace and said, "Don't you dare bully Daisy, you got it." Nalace was rendered speechless. After Diana left, Daisy couldn't hold herself back anymore and laughed. "Your mother is still as enthusiastic as always." Nalace chuckled helplessly. "That's because she likes you." Daisy looked at him and said, "She likes you too. After all, you're her only son." He was stunned. He knew Daisy was comforting him and laughed. "Are you afraid I'll be upset?" She did not say anything. Nalace caressed her hair and kissed her forehead. "It's a good thing that my mother likes you. If possible, I want to give you all the love in this world." When they were having dinner, Diana just talked to Daisy and ignored her son and husband. "Sweetheart, you can't just eat meat. You need to eat some vegetables too. Green food is healthy and nutritious." After Diana finished talking, she pushed a bowl of salad to Daisy. Daisy had already eaten enough, but she couldn't bring herself to say no to Diana. "Thank you, Mom." Nalace cleared his throat and chimed in. "Mom, she's already eaten a lot. She might get indigestion if you keep stuffing her food. Biting her fork, Daisy threw an appreciative gaze at Nalles. After all, she couldn't eat anything anymore. Diana threw her hands up and replied, "Isn't there another one in her womb?" Everyone in the dining hall fell silent. Daisy and Nalles looked at Diana in shock. After all, neither of them had told Diana about her pregnancy before. It took Diana a while before she realized that she had made a slip of the tongue. She rose to her feet and said, "Oh yeah, I nearly forgot that we have some yogurt in the fridge. Yogurt is good for digestion. Let me go get you some." Diana knew that Daisy was pregnant, but she pretended that she did not know because she wanted them to tell her about it. However, little did she expect that she would make a slip of the tongue and expose herself. After Diana took the yogurt for Daisy, she made an excuse and wanted to run away from the embarrassing situation. However, Nalles did not give her the chance and said, "Mom, how did you learn that Daisy is pregnant?" "Daisy is pregnant." Rick was stunned. Apparently, unlike Diana, he did not know that Daisy was pregnant. "Well, how did you find out about it, Mom?" asked Daisy, pretending to be shocked. Rick also turned his head around to look at Diana. "When did you learn about it, honey? Why didn't you tell me?" Diana chided herself inwardly for exposing herself. Knowing that Daisy was pregnant was totally different from the couple telling her about it. Nalles picked up a glass of water and said, "It seems like Edison told you about it." "Yeah, I knew about it, but I just wanted you guys to tell me. If I hadn't exposed myself, you'd just continue to keep me in the dark." Diana pretended to be sad and wiped the invisible tears from her eyes. Daisy hastily explained, "No, Mom. We were going to announce it during dinner." The problem was that Diana had been stuffing her food since they started their dinner, so she did not have the chance to tell her about it. Rick suddenly chuckled. "Am I going to become a grandfather soon?" Nalles nodded. Rick was filled with so much joy that he put his fork down. "I guess we need to prepare a room for the baby soon." After speaking, he summoned Peter and told him to prepare a room for his future grandchildren. Diana thought of something and looked at Daisy. "Sweetheart, let's go shopping tomorrow. We need to buy some clothes for your baby." Nalles hugged Daisy and said, "I'll go with her." Diana said, through gritted teeth, "Have you forgotten about your company? How long are you going to let Hedian take care of your company? Doesn't he need a break?" Chapter 2463. Nalles was rendered speechless. The next day, at the National Film and Television College, Freya was preparing her script for her short film in the classroom when Shannon, Leia, and a few of her classmates came in. Shannon said, "By the way, my boyfriend is holding a sorority party at his house today. Do you want to come along?" "What? You have a boyfriend?" "Yeah, we've been together for more than a month. I didn't have time to introduce him to you, but you guys will see him today. I'm so jealous of you. What does your boyfriend do for a living?" Shannon smiled and replied, "His family owns a business. His father planned to let him take over the company recently." After Shannon finished speaking, she walked up to Freya and asked, "Freya, are you coming? You can bring your husband as well." Freya pressed her lips tightly. As if Shannon knew Freya would reject her, she continued, "Don't worry, all of us are friends. Come and join us for fun." "That's right, Freya, let's go together. Besides, aren't you curious about Shannon's boyfriend?" Freya lowered her head for a moment and said, "Okay. But I'm not sure if my husband can come with me or not." "Why? If your husband doesn't even have time to attend a party with you, then he fails as a husband. If it were my boyfriend, no matter how busy he is, he would have made time for me. Seriously, your boyfriend is so nice." When Shannon heard all those compliments, a triumphant smile appeared on her face. She enjoyed this kind of feeling a lot and liked being in the limelight. Freya did not say anything. She knew what Shannon was planning. Shannon did not invite Freya out of sincerity, she just wanted to humiliate Freya. She also invited her friends because she wanted to show off her boyfriend in front of other people. Meanwhile, in the shopping mall, Diana and Daisy had gone through many maternal and children's stores, as well as toy stores. The bodyguards behind them were holding many bags, and Diana looked like she would not stop until she had bought everything in the shopping mall. "Sweetheart, this skirt looks adorable. Do you want to buy it?" Daisy said helplessly, "Mom, we've already bought a lot. Besides, what if it's a boy?" She noticed that Diana liked baby girls. All the clothes she bought were skirts for girls. Diana paused for a moment and then smiled, "It's okay. A baby boy can wear these too. I used to dress Nalles like a girl when he was a kid." Daisy smiled but did not make any comment. She had seen the pictures of Nales wearing a skirt before. Besides, she still remembered how he looked when he wore a skirt back in the East Islands. She was so jealous of him. This was because he looked really pretty in a skirt. In the end, she gave in to Diana and bought the skirt. When they came out of the shopping mall, Daisy suddenly saw a familiar figure. She squinted and realized that he was Colton. Mom, I saw my brother. Can you wait for me here for a while? Daisy gave the things in her hand to Diana and ran toward Colton. Diana shouted, "Hey, don't run so fast, Daisy. You might fall down." After that, she turned to the two bodyguards behind her. "Go take care of her." The two bodyguards nodded and followed after Daisy. Daisy was looking everywhere for Colton. She had clearly seen him but couldn't spot him now. Meanwhile, Colton walked into a restaurant. The two men in front of him stood up and greeted him. "You're finally here, Mr. Goldman." He nodded and took his seat. The two men handed a property contract and said, "We've already gotten the ownership contract of the villa for you. Mr. Rowan said he's willing to sell the villa to you." Chapter 2464. Colton checked through the contract. After a long while, he signed his name on it, and his lawyer also stamped it. After they left, Colton received a call from Maisie. He answered the call and said, "Mom." Maisie said, "Cole, Daisy and Nolly have returned to Yarramore. When you have time, help me to pay a visit to the Knolls. Remember to bring gifts." "What? They're in Yarramore. Daisy is pregnant, so of course, she has to go back to Yarramore with Nolly. Since you're in Yarramore, remember to pay a visit to the Knolls from time to time to promote the relationship between our families. Don't make the Knolls feel that we're slighting them. Understand?" Colton pressed his lips thin. "Okay." After he hung up the call, he looked outside through the window. If Daisy was pregnant, did this mean that he would also become an uncle? For the sake of Daisy's kid, it seemed to him that he should pay a visit to the Knolls. Suddenly, he received a text message that pulled him back to reality. Shannon had invited her course mates to have a party at her boyfriend's house. A man was standing in front of the courtyard, waiting for them. Shannon walked up to him and wrapped her arm around his. "Darling, these are all my course mates." The man hugged her and said, "Really? Welcome to my house. The party is over at the pool. We're about to start soon. Shannon, your boyfriend and you look so cute together. He must be very rich, right? Since he can live in such a big villa, I'm sure Shannon will have a happy life in the future." This villa was situated in a rich district, and those who lived there were influential figures. They were all very jealous of Shannon, save for Freya. She just stood at the side silently. All of them came to the pool together. There was a grill, a variety of food, wine, and so on. Shannon's boyfriend said, "Guys, please make yourselves at home." The rest of the people said, "All right then." Some of them started the grill, and those who had brought their swimsuits went to change into them. Suddenly, Freya saw the man drag Shannon to the side. He was saying something to Shannon, and Shannon held his arm with a pleasing smile on her face. The man pulled his arm out of Shannon's grip, turned around, and left. When Shannon turned her head around, Freya hastily averted a gaze. Shannon walked over to her and asked, "Is your husband really not coming? He's going to miss a lot of fun." The rest of the people looked over at them, and she continued. "Even if he's busy, he should make time for you. If he can't even do that, it means your husband doesn't really love you, does he?" The rest of the people were also curious about Freya's husband after listening to their conversation. After all, it was Shannon who had told them that Freya was married. "Huh, is that true, Freya? Your husband doesn't love you at all." Shannon is right. No matter how busy he is, he should come here at least for a while and show himself in front of us. Freya felt a headache. She rubbed her temples and said, "I told you that my husband is busy, so I hope you guys can understand. Besides, he doesn't like an occasion like this." Shannon frowned. "Who does your husband think he is? How can he be so busy when he just owns a small business?" "My boyfriend is busy as well, but he still makes time for me." "That's right. Are you sure your husband isn't just giving excuses? As far as I know, if a husband can't make time for his wife, it means he has another woman outside." Leia was rendered speechless. She felt it was such a fortune that Colton was not here. Chapter 2465. What are you guys doing? I've brought you all some wine. The man came over with 2 bottles of wine in his hand. Another 2 men were standing beside him as well. Shannon had never seen those 2 men before and was momentarily stunned. She walked up to her boyfriend and asked, "Are they your friends?" The man asked, "You guys don't mind, right? Before Shannon could say anything, the other female students chimed in and teased, "Of course, we don't mind." The party continued. Freya had been staying by the grill while the two men were having fun with those women, in the pool. Those men were getting handsy on those women, and Freya frowned. She did not know why but had a feeling that Shannon's boyfriend was up to something no good. It seemed to her that he did not care about Shannon's coursemates at all. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought two strangers with him. Soon, Leia came up from the pool. Her face was dark, and she walked toward Freya. "Can you come to the restroom with me?" Freya was momentarily stunned before nodding. Freya followed Leia to the restroom and waited outside the door. After Leia finished her business, she pulled a cigarette out and lit it up. Looking at her, Freya asked, "What's wrong?" Leia took a drag from the cigarette and said, "I really don't know what kind of friends Shannon's boyfriend knows. While we were in the pool, those two bastards were." After she finished speaking, she clicked her tongue and added, "They're so fucking disgusting." Freya fell silent for a moment. "If you don't want to stay here anymore, do you want to leave with me?" Leia froze. After a short while, she chuckled. "Shannon won't be happy if we leave now. I don't want to get into any trouble." Freya could see that Leia treated Shannon as her friend. After she finished her cigarette, Leia came out with Freya. Then, they saw there was an argument going on. Leia walked over and asked, "What happened?" The girl who was crying said, "He touched me." Everyone looked toward the man, and he shrugged indifferently. "There are many people in the pool. It was just an accident. Besides, if you want to come out and have some fun, then stop putting on airs." The girl felt humiliated and was shaking with anger. Shannon and her boyfriend came out as well. When Shannon was about to say something, her boyfriend scoffed and said, "I thought something happened, so he just touched you." The rest of the girls were stunned. Shannon did not want to make herself look embarrassed, so she just smiled and said, "Let's just forget about it. I'm sure he didn't mean it. Let's continue the party." Freya looked toward Leia. The latter kept silent, and there was disappointment in her eyes. Shannon's boyfriend turned to Shannon and scolded, "What kind of friends did you bring, huh? We all came out to have some fun, yet she has to be a killjoy and spoil the fun. Don't you think that's annoying?" Shannon's face turned pale. "I'm sorry, darling. I'll explain to them." Her boyfriend flung her hand away. "I allowed them to come here because of you. Tell them to stop being insensitive, or else get the hell out of here." Shannon was so angry that she nearly passed out. She always told her friends that her boyfriend loved her very much, but now everyone knew that she was lying. Her boyfriend did not love her at all. Would he do something like this to her friends if he really loved her? Meanwhile, a few luxury cars drove into the courtyard. The crowd looked over and saw 4 bodyguards come out of the cars. The man that came out last was handsome and had a regal air about him that made everyone exclaim. "Who is he? Is he a friend of Shannon's boyfriend? He's really my type." Chapter 2466. Shannon was slightly taken aback. She stared at Freya and bit her lip. Freya was profoundly surprised too. After all, she did not remember telling Colton about the venue. "How does he know that I'm here?" Shannon's boyfriend took a closer look at Colton. "Who are you?" After saying that, he asked Shannon with a slightly irritated expression. "Is he your friend?" Freya walked toward Colton. "How did you know that I was here?" Colton glanced at the people behind her indifferently, stretched out his arm, and embraced her. "Why didn't you tell me you've come to this place? Oh my god, is he Freya's husband? Didn't Shannon say that Freya's husband is an entrepreneur who just started his own business? Those cars that came with him, their total cost could buy anyone here a villa already, right?" Listening to the whispers around her, Shannon clenched her hands that were hanging by her sides and forced a smile. "Freya, how great is this now that your husband is here? We welcome him very much." Colton lifted his gaze. "I'm here only to pick up my wife. I couldn't care less to be part of such a meaningless occasion." Shannon's expression turned livid as Colton talked back to her, and her boyfriend, who was standing right next to her, was not very happy with Colton's response either. "Hey, what do you mean by that?" Colton's expression remained unchanged. "It means that I don't like your tiny house, so I don't see the need for us to stay here." Shannon's boyfriend scoffed angrily and lifted his chin. "Does renting a few luxury cars give you all this confidence? Do you know who I am? I don't need to know who you are." Colton wrapped his arm around Freya's waist and was about to leave, but that was when Shannon's boyfriend rushed up to them. "You bastard, you stop right there." One of the bodyguards stepped forward to stop him. When he was about to assault the bodyguard, all the bodyguards drew their guns in an instant. The moment he saw the guns, he immediately raised his hands and dared not move another strand of muscle. The people around were also frightened by the scene. Even his two friends dared not come forward and voice out for him at that moment. Colton suddenly stopped moving forward and turned to look at the rest of the guests. You guys are my wife's course mates, so I sincerely invite you to our villa as our honored guests. Do you want to stay here or leave with us? Those postgraduate students were all dumbfounded and looked at each other. Leia was the first to walk out of the crowd. I'll leave with you, Leia. Shannon was astonished as she did not expect her friend to leave her. Leia looked back at Shannon and explained calmly, I'm very disappointed with you, Shannon. You're the one who invited us here, but you didn't even stand up for us and stop those two men when they harassed us. On the contrary, you actually sided with your boyfriend. Since your boyfriend doesn't even regard us as your friends, why should I diminish my own worth by staying here and getting treated like garbage? Leia's words also encouraged the lady who had also gotten harassed earlier. She mustered the courage to follow in Leia's footsteps. Leia, I'll go with you. She did not want to stay here anymore. The other invitees were also convinced and stood behind Leia one after another. Let's go too. Seeing this scene, Shannon was stunned. How did this happen? The corners of Colton's mouth curled upward, and he wrapped his arm around Freya's waist. Let's go, darling. You're the hostess of the night. Before Freya could recover from the trance, she had already been led into the car by Colton while the others got into the other cars. Watching the cars leaving, Shannon lowered her head and trembled with anger. She felt so wronged that she wanted to cry. On the other side of the city, Colton's cars drove into a villa located on the outskirts of the city without any hassle. The villa was 5 stories high, had a private garden and a golf course, and was surrounded by a rose garden. Freya looked out the window and was slightly shocked. Where are we? Chapter 2467. Colton leaned back in the chair. As soon as we bring your father over, this will be your home from now on. She was flustered and stared at Colton. There's no need to thank me in such a hurry. Colton stroked the ends of her hair, hugged her in his arms, and pressed his lips against her ear. After all, I still can't accept the fact that my wife is being looked down upon out there. Her eyes turned bloodshot instantly, and her heart trembled and skipped a beat. After everyone got out of the cars, they were surprised again. No one could believe that this was Freya's husband's residence. No wonder he didn't even bother to stay there. This place is so much bigger than Shannon's boyfriend's villa. There's even a helipad on the lawn, and a rose garden surrounds the villa. If we walk into its backyard, we might even get lost, won't we? Colton led them into the rose garden, where more than a dozen servants were still decorating the scene for the party. The long table in the middle of the garden was covered with a white tablecloth, and on top of the table were silver tableware and bottles of red wine. The red wine was Conti, and each bottle cost 15,000. Even the delicacies were cooked on site by chefs hired from Michelin star-rated hotels. The grandeur of this banquet suppressed that of Shannon's party in a matter of seconds. This is not even a competition. Because there were waiters, waitresses, and chefs on site, they did not have to worry about the reoccurrence of the incident that happened back at Shannon's party. At that moment, everyone was glad deep down that they had made the correct choice to leave that party. Colton turned around and said to Freya, since you're the hostess of the night, you're in charge of this banquet. You'll be the one who entertains your friends. After saying that, he looked at their guests. From now on, I'll leave my wife under your care, so please do treat her well. When everyone came to the table, the waiters served them their dishes, which made the experience very similar to dining in a fine dining restaurant. It was just that eating outdoors made everyone feel like they were closer to nature. At this time, someone asked, Freya, is your husband really an entrepreneur who owns a small business? I think Shannon lied to us. Doesn't she always like to show off that she's living a better life than others? Freya smiled. He really doesn't own a small business. I knew it. But Freya, you indeed have been doing a great job in hiding it. Let's put the fact that you got married secretly aside. You actually kept it from us. If I were you, I wouldn't want to bring it up either. Freya pursed her lips and explained calmly, even if I were to bring it up, others would only think that I'm showing off. Moreover, I just don't think that it's necessary. You live your life for yourself, don't you? So, all we need to do is live our own lives to the fullest, and that's it. There was a sudden silence at the dinner table. After all, what she said was reasonable. Yeah, even if Freya were to tell all of us that she's gotten married and her husband is filthy rich, we'd only think that it's her way of showing off her life to us. In fact, we all know that Shannon has always been showing off. It's said that people like to show off things that they don't actually own, and through doing so, they get to satisfy their self-esteem and pride. But if someone were to show off only for the sake of their personal pride, and they do so through the wealth that others obtained through a lot of hard work, wouldn't that be the most shameless thing to do? Because those items don't belong to them. Hey, let's not talk about this anymore. By the way, Freya, how did you and your husband meet? I guess your first meeting must be very romantic, right? Freya paused for a bit, recalled something, and replied with a smile, romantic? That's not the word that I'd use. We despised each other at first. Oh, so you two started as rivals? It's very romantic for two people who hated each other to come together in the end. Freya's grin widened. Yeah, I won't refute that. Chapter 2468. Halfway through the conversation, Colton appeared behind her and placed his hands on her shoulders. Are you guys badmouthing me? Someone replied with a smile, we were just asking Freya how she met you. Really? Colton narrowed his eyes, looked down at the woman sitting right in front of him, and stated meaningfully, we studied at the same college. One wouldn't say that it's a story of love at first sight, but it's definitely a story of true love. Freya was astonished, feeling something was wrong with his side of the story, so she raised her head. What are you talking about? Isn't that the case? Colton leaned over and stared at her. I wonder who's the woman who couldn't get me off her mind, so much so that she traveled to Zelakova looking for me. Freya smacked his hand off her shoulders. Did you inherit that shamelessness? Her ears were flushed. Colton rubbed her earlobe with his fingertips and sneered. Are you implying that our father is a shameless man? Freya was rendered speechless. The guests sitting around the table had had enough of the lovey-dovey couple. He pampers her like no one else in the world. How could it not be true love? At Giannis Tech Company, Gideon had worked overtime until midnight last night and was so tired that he slumped on the desk. Nales, bro, when will you be back? I'm about to die already. Who's about to die? A familiar voice came from the entrance, and Gideon sat up straight instantly. The moment he saw Nales leaning against the door, he seemed to have seen his savior, his hope. Geez, bro, if you were to stay in Zelakova for a little longer, I'd really die in this office. Nales smirked and walked into the office. Thank you for your hard work during this period. Gideon quickly walked to the couch and sat down across from him. They said that you went there to find yourself a wife. Have you gotten married? Nales lifted his gaze. Why would I be back if I hadn't gotten what I left this place for? Then where's your wife? You said that you'd introduce me to her. Gideon glanced outside the room and looked around. Nales got up and walked to the desk. I'll introduce her to you later. Don't you still have tasks to attend to? Gideon slumped back into the couch. Dude, I'm exhausted. You might not know it, but I've been working overtime every day during this period. If I hadn't stopped some of those employees downstairs, you would be going through stacks of resignation letters now instead of talking to me. Nales picked up a file, flipped through it, and responded with a faint hum. Who are those people who want to leave? And which department are they from? Gideon did not think much. There are 3 groups of people. Maybe the software programmers think that it's been too harsh recently. Then just let them go. Gideon sat up abruptly. What? Nales pulled the director's chair out and sat down leisurely. The Giannis Group has only been established for less than 2 years. I told them at the beginning that the next few years would be a little harsher, so if they can't even bear a little bit of hard work, it's time for us to look for new blood who can endure the hardships. Gideon scratched his cheeks, looking slightly embarrassed. They might just be complaining. He raised his eyebrows. Instead of complaining about their work, why not use the time on something more productive? Am I right? Soon, Nales cascaded a set of orders to all the departments. Hashtag to employees who feel that the current pressure is too great to bear, we welcome your instant resignation. After several employees resigned, the company renewed its employment benefits immediately, and every employee's salary was doubled accordingly. Everyone was shocked, and secretly thanked themselves for not being impulsive. Since then, no one heard any complaints about overworking. Gideon did not expect that Nolachi would come up with this plan, and the effect of his method was exceptional. In the corridor, he followed Nolachi around the office. Bro, how did you come up with that idea? Nolachi stood in front of the elevator and pressed the button on the elevator. The act of complaining will create a chain reaction. When one person is complaining, others will naturally follow suit. Chapter 2469. But did they really want to leave the company? It's just that they think they're overworking, so they're full of complaints. If so, all we need to do is give them the opportunity to leave the company. That will shut some people's mouths, while those who don't really want to leave will consider the pros and cons themselves, making their own decisions based on the situation that they're in. And when that's happening, we only have to tweak the benefits and salaries. With that, what do you think will go through their minds? Gideon gave it a good thought. I see. They'll think the notice asking them to resign is only a temptation. The elevator door opened, and Nales got in. They'll think that it's a fluke, they'll be glad that they've chosen to stay, and those who left the company will miss the benefits and salary raise. With that, the complaints will naturally stop. Gideon was in a daze as this seemed to make sense. Nales held the elevator and looked up at him. Aren't you going to come in? Gideon returned to his senses and hurried in. The elevator arrived at the first floor, and the moment the two metal doors opened, Nales looked up and saw Daisy standing at the door. He was slightly startled, then pursed his lips and let off a smile. Why did you come here in person? Didn't Mom tell you to get more rest? Daisy picked up the lunch box hidden behind her and grinned brightly. Mom asked me to bring you lunch. Gideon stared at the two of them and asked faintly, Bro, is this your wife? Nales nodded. Gideon rubbed his palms against his clothes and stretched out his hand with a smile, wanting to shake her hand. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Knowles. Daisy was about to shake his hand out of politeness, but Nales grabbed her hand over and held it abruptly. Gideon was caught off guard. Nales turned his head and glanced at him. Who gave you permission to shake her hand? Gideon was at a loss for words. He withdrew his hand with a disheartened expression. I won't mind if you don't want us to shake hands. But how are you this jealous? No way, bro. How are you this possessive? Nales pulled Daisy to his side. You brat, just a few more words, and I'll send you back to Haniston. Gideon felt extremely wronged. Geez, that's not how you treat your buddy. Daisy burst out laughing. The two stared at her, so she restrained herself a little more and wrapped her arm around that of Nales's. Nales got himself a younger brother. That's not something that one gets to see every day. Gideon explained, I call him my brother only because he's older than me. Nales frowned. Are you very free at the moment? Gideon knew that all he wanted was to send him away, so he pouted. I'm not very free. I'm a hectic man, so I'm leaving already. He took 2 steps forward, turned his head around, and waved to Daisy. See you around, Mrs. Knowles. Daisy smiled and waved back at him. When she came back to her senses, she realized that the man standing next to her looked upset, and she could not hold back her laughter. Are you jealous of my brother? Brother. Nales tapped her on the head lightly with his knuckle. Since when did you get a new brother, giving me a new brother-in-law? She stuck out her tongue playfully. Isn't your brother my brother too? Nales lifted the lunch box in his hand and wrapped his arm around her waist. Aren't you here to accompany me for lunch? Let's go. In the office. Daisy sat on the couch across from him with her head resting in her hands, staring at Nales while he ate his lunch and went through some documents. She then frowned slightly. Can't you just eat properly? Nales put the document down, raised his head, and gave off a smile. Is you, command, Mrs. Knowles. Nolachi, are you very busy? Then I won't bother you anymore? Just as she was about to get up, Nolachi grabbed her hand. I'm indeed busy, but my wife is by my side. That's how I get my motivation. She sat back in her seat. That's very slick of you. He raised his eyebrows. Lick. She blushed and roared softly, slick, with an S. Nolachi laughed so vigorously that his chest convulsed. He really loved to tease his wife when he had nothing to do and watch as she blushed. Chapter 2470. At the same time, Freya sent her course mates out of the villa one after another. Leia walked up to a car, stopped all of a sudden, and turned around to look at Freya. Thank you for the hospitality, and I owe you an apology. Freya was slightly taken aback. Leia lowered her gaze. I recognize Shannon as a friend of mine. She defamed you when she badmouthed you back then. Although you didn't mind that, I should have stopped her. I'm sorry about that. Freya pursed her lips tightly. She had always been a loner and did not like to maintain close connections with others, which was why she never minded what others thought of her. It might look like she did not mind it on the surface, but she actually cared a lot deep down. She was a little surprised that Leia would apologize to her, but she felt a slight surge of warmth within her chest cavity at the same time. It's okay, Freya, you're your truest self when you're with your husband. Although you're normally very friendly when you're around us, I can see that your smile is only a disguise that you use to alienate yourself. Leia stared at her. Actually, you don't have to pretend when you're around us. Everyone thinks it's rather difficult to get to know you because you always alienate yourself from us, so it's not that everyone hates you. After saying that, Leia got into the car. After the car left, Freya was still standing on the spot as what Leia had said echoed in her mind. Freya turned around and was slightly startled when she saw Colton standing behind her. How long have you been standing here? Did he hear what Leia said to me just now? Colton pursed his lips and smiled. What's wrong? Are you still afraid that I might hear something I shouldn't have heard? Freya did not say anything. Colton approached her and stopped right in front of her. What she just said to you seems to make sense. What? Apart from Daisy, I haven't seen any other friends of yours. Although not everyone would suit you perfectly, you don't have to avoid all of them. Although there are millions and millions of Shannons out there, she's not the only type of human in the world. There are also millions and millions of Leias. Freya's eyes moved. Colton placed his hands on her shoulders. There's nothing to worry about. You still have me, don't you? I'll always be here for you. Freya looked up at him and chuckled. You've just shown me so much support today, so why should I worry? Colton hugged her. Good, now let's go. She was stunned. Where are we going? We're going to pick up my father-in-law. Back in the Pruitt Manor. Brandon remained silent for a long time when he learned about the new villa. Faye, there's really no need for me to move there. I'm doing just fine here. Freya gazed at him and said, do you know how to take care of yourself if you stay here by yourself? If you can't even take care of yourself, the least you can do is not let others worry about you. Brandon was rendered speechless by the remark. He knew what his daughter's thoughts were, but, I just don't want to cause you any trouble. You staying here is already causing us trouble. Brandon was at a loss for words. Probably because he could not argue with his daughter, Brandon had no choice but to agree to the plan. When he was packing his luggage, he asked her out of the blue, then, are we going to sell this manor? Freya smiled. Who told you that we'll be selling it? Why can't it be rented to someone else? Brandon was dumbfounded. You're planning to rent it. She explained while helping him with his luggage. What else do you expect me to do? I know that you're reluctant to sell it, but the property will be wasted if it's left unoccupied. As such, why not rent it to someone else? You can retire with peace of mind and become a landlord. You'll have a passive income every month, so you won't have to worry about anything. Brandon smiled. You're right. It's better to rent it than to sell it. After all, it'd be quite a loss if it were to be sold. Its location is really unmatched. We can even give it to Dee Dee when the time comes.